Bet against me? At this point, you must be out of your mind. Bet against me? Bet against me? At this point of my life? You must be crazy. You must not have been paying attention. You must think I'm still the same version of me you saw struggling, crawling, breaking. Nah, that version died. And this one came back unstoppable. Do you understand what I had to crawl through just to be standing right here? Do you even comprehend the pain I've swallowed? The nights I couldn't sleep, the mornings I woke up to nothing but still showed up like I had everything? This ain't motivation. This is survival. I've been laughed at, I've been doubted, I've been betrayed by people I would have died for. I've been told to quit by voices in my own head. And I'm still here, still grinding, still pushing, still believing in something when it would have been easier to give up. So go ahead. Put your money on my failures. Say I can't do it. Say it's too late. Say I don't have what it takes. But when you do that, when you bet against me now, you're betting against the pain that forged me. You're betting against the losses that taught me. You're betting against the heart that refused to quit when it had every reason to. You don't know what it cost me to wake up and keep going. You don't know what it feels like to walk around carrying invisible wounds, still showing up with a smile, still going to war every day with demons nobody sees. And you got the audacity to bet against me now? You think this version of me is soft? You think I'm not ready to go all the way in? I will outwork every single soul who thinks this is a game. I will outlast every fake, every doubter, every hater, every fucking time. This ain't a season. This ain't a trend. This is war. And I'm built for it. At this point of my life, I ain't fighting for trophies. I'm fighting for legacy. And I swear on everything I've lost, I will prove you wrong at all costs. So go ahead, bet against me. And when it's all said and done, you'll remember the day you made that mistake. Heavenly Father, I come to you not just as a man with dreams, but as a warrior with wounds, as a fighter who's been counted out, laughed at, talked about, and doubted. I come to you with fire in my spirit and pain in my heart. Lord, they said I wouldn't make it. They said I wasn't good enough. They said I'd fall and never rise. But you know the truth. God, you know the battles I've fought in silence. You know the tears I've cried behind closed doors. You know the nights I wanted to quit and you kept me. So Father, today I ask for supernatural strength, not just to endure, but to conquer. Not just to survive, but to thrive. Give me the courage to walk in rooms where I'm doubted and still own my purpose. Give me the discipline to keep showing up even when it hurts. Give me the endurance to outlast every storm. And God, give me the fire to prove every single hater wrong without ever losing my faith or my character. Let my success be the evidence of your power. Let my rise be the reminder that you don't need approval to move mountains. Let them watch me glow, not for my glory, but for yours. Use me, Lord. Turn their doubt into a stage for your greatness. Turn their hate into fuel for my mission. Turn their betrayal into building blocks for my destiny. Because when I win, they will know it was you. When I rise, they will see your hand on me. When I shine, it won't be because I got lucky. It will be because you never left me. So God, if I gotta walk through fire, walk with me. If I gotta fight alone, fight beside me. And when I win, when I rise, let it be so undeniable that the same ones who bet against me will have no choice but to say, God was with them all along. In Jesus' name, amen.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make.
Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with. Now they looking nervously, and I don't really care what you think.
shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make.
I know it's discouraging to see people doubt your abilities and potential. It's heartbreaking to see and hear them boldly tell you that you will never amount to anything. But today is the day you've been waiting for, to fully believe in yourself and defy their expectations. Therefore, to fully transition from the weak and pathetic you to a more confident, ambitious, and determined you, say these affirmations quietly. I am built for this. Every setback is a setup for my comeback. I will not fold. I will not quit. I will conquer. Their doubt is fuel for my fire. I was born to rise, and rise I will. I don't need their validation. I have my vision. I move with purpose, not permission. My grind will silence every lie ever told about me. I am unshakable, unbreakable, and unstoppable. What they meant for harm, God is using for elevation. I refuse to stay small to make others comfortable. I embrace the pain. It's shaping the power in me. I am not who I was. I'm better, stronger, wiser. I don't chase revenge. I chase results. My work ethic is my weapon. I will make them regret ever doubting me. I rise in silence and I shine loud. I am proof that storms don't last. Warriors do. I am on a mission and no one can stop it but me. I show up for myself no matter who lives. I don't just survive, I dominate. I am turning my pain into power, my pressure into diamonds. I am chosen, covered, and called. Every morning I rise with purpose in my heart and fire in my soul. I am becoming everything they said I never would. You can now open your eyes and remember to recite these truths daily to fully immerse yourself into your mission and purpose. The Psychology of Money. Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness by Morgan Housel. Introduction. The greatest show on earth. I spent my college years working as a valet at a nice hotel in Los Angeles. One frequent guest was a technology executive. He was a genius, having designed and patented a key component in Wi-Fi routers in his 20s. He had started and sold several companies. He was widely successful. He also had a relationship with money I describe as a mix of insecurity and childish stupidity. He carried a stack of $100 bills several inches thick. He showed it to everyone who wanted to see it and many who didn't. He bragged openly and loudly about his wealth, often while drunk and always apropos of nothing. One day, he handed one of my colleagues several $1,000s of cash and said, "Go to the jewelry store down the street and get me a few $1,000 gold coins." An hour later, gold coins in hand, the tech executive and his buddies gathered around by a dock overlooking the Pacific Ocean. They then proceeded to throw the coins into the sea, skipping them like rocks, cackling as they argued who went farthest just for fun. Days later, he shattered a lamp in the hotel's restaurant. A manager told him it was a $500 lamp and he'd have to replace it. "You want $500? The executive asked incredulously while pulling a brick of cash from his pocket and handing it to the manager. "Here's $5,000. Now get out of my face and don't ever insult me like that again." You may wonder how long this behavior could last. And the answer was not long. I learned years later that he went broke. The premise of this book is that doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach even to really smart people. A genius who loses control of their emotions can be a financial disaster, and the opposite is also true. Ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if they have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. My favorite Wikipedia entry begins, Ronald James Reed was an American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and a gas station attendant. Ronald Reed was born in rural Vermont. He was the first person in his family to graduate high school, made all the more impressive by the fact that he hitchhiked to campus each day. For those who knew Ronald Reed, there wasn't much else worth mentioning. His life was about as low-key as they come. Reed fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years, swept floors at J.C. Penney for 17 years. He bought a 2-bedroom house for $12,000 at the age of 38 and lived there for the rest of his life. He was widowed at age 50 and never remarried. A friend recalled that his main hobby was chopping firewood. Reed died in 2014, age 92, which is when the humble rural janitor made international headlines. 2,813,503 Americans died in 2014. Fewer than 4,000 of them had a net worth of over $8 million when they passed away. Ronald Reed was one of them. In his will, the former janitor left $2 million to his stepkids and more than $6 million to his local hospital and library. Those who knew Reed was baffled. Where did he get all that money? It turned out there was no secret. There was no lottery win and no inheritance. Reed saved what little he could and invested it in blue chip stocks. Then he waited for decades on end as tiny savings compounded into more than $8 million. That is it, from janitor to philanthropist. A few months before Ronald Reed died, another man named Richard was in the news. Richard Fascone was everything Ronald Reed was not. A Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive with an MBA. Fascone had such a successful career in finance that he retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist. Former Merrill CEO David Komansky praised Fascone's business savvy, leadership skills, sound judgment, and personal integrity. Crain's business magazines once included him in a 40 under 40 list of successful business people. But then, like the gold coin skipping tech executive, everything fell apart. In the mid-2000s, Fascone borrowed heavily to expand an 18,000 square foot home in Greenwich, Connecticut that had 11 bathrooms, 2 elevators, 2 pools, 7 garages, and cost more than $90,000 a month to maintain. Then, the 2008 financial crisis hit. The crisis hurt virtually everyone's finances. It apparently turned Fascone's into dust. High debt and illiquid assets left him bankrupt. "I currently have no income," he allegedly told a bankruptcy judge in 2008. First, his Palm Beach house was foreclosed. In 2014, it was the Greenwich Mansion stand. 5 months before Ronald Reed left his fortune to charity, Richard Fascone's home, where guests recalled the thrill of dining and dancing atop a see-through covering on the home's indoor swimming pool, was sold in a foreclosure auction for 75% less than an insurance company figured it was worth. Ronald Reed was patient. Richard Fascone was greedy. That is all it took to eclipse the massive education and experience gap between the two. The lesson here is not to be more like Ronald and less like Richard, though that is not bad advice. The fascinating thing about these stories is how unique they are to finance. In what other industry does someone with no college degree, no training, no background, no formal experience, and no connections massively outperform someone with the best education, the best training, and the best connections? I struggle to think of any. Possible to think of a story about Ronald Reed performing a heart transplant better than a Harvard-trained surgeon, or designing a skyscraper superior for the best-trained architects. There will never be a story for a janitor outperforming the world's top nuclear engineers. But these stories do happen in investing. The fact that Ronald Reed can coexist with Richard Fascone has 2 explanations. One, financial outcomes are driven by luck, independent of intelligence and effort. That's true to some extent, and this book will discuss it in further detail. Or 2, and I think more common, the financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. I call this soft skill the psychology of money. The aim of this book is to use short stories to convince you that soft skills are more important than the technical side of money. I'll do this in a way that will help everyone from Reed to Fascon and everyone in between make better financial decisions. These soft skills are, I've come to realize, greatly underappreciated. Finance is overwhelmingly taught as a math-based field where you put data into a formula and the formula tells you what to do, and it's assumed that you'll just go do it. This is true in personal finance, where you are told to have a 6-month emergency fund and save 10% of your salary. It's true in investing, where we know the exact historical correlations between interest rates and valuations. And it's true in corporate finance, where CFOs can measure the precise cost of capital. It's not that any of these things are bad or wrong. It's that knowing what to do tells you nothing about what happens in your head when you try to do it. Two topics impact everyone, whether you are interested in them or not: health and money. The healthcare industry is a triumph of modern science. With rising life expectancy across the world, scientific discoveries have replaced doctors' old ideas about how the human body works, and virtually everyone is healthier because of it. The money industry, investing, personal finance, business planning is another story. Finance has scooped up the smartest minds coming from top universities over the last 2 decades. Financial engineering was the most popular major in Princeton's School of Engineering a decade ago. Is there any evidence it has made us better investors? I have seen none. Through collective trial and error over the years, we learned how to become better farmers, skilled plumbers, and advanced chemists. But has trial and error taught us to become better with our personal finances? Are we less likely to bury ourselves in debt? More likely to save for a rainy day? Prepare for retirement? Have realistic views about what money does and doesn't do for our happiness? I've seen no compelling evidence. Most of the reason why, I believe, is that we think about and are thought about money in ways that are too much like physics, with rules and laws, and not enough like psychology with emotions and nuance. And that, to me, is as fascinating as it is important. Money is everywhere. It affects all of us and confuses most of us. Everyone thinks about it a little differently. It offers lessons on things that apply to many areas of life, like risk, confidence, and happiness. Few topics offer a more powerful magnifying glass that helps explain why people behave the way they do than money. It is one of the greatest shows on earth. My own appreciation for the psychology of money is shaped by more than a decade of writing on the topic. I began writing about finance in early 2008. It was the dawn of financial crisis and the worst recession in 80 years. To write about what was happening, I wanted to figure out what was happening. But the first thing I learned after the financial crisis was that no one could accurately explain what happened or why it happened, let alone what should be done about it. For every good explanation, there was an equally convincing rebuttal. Engineers can determine the cause of a bridge collapse because there is agreement that if a certain amount of force is applied to a certain area, that area will break. Physics isn't controversial. It's guided by laws. Finance is different. It's guided by people's behaviors, and how I behave might make sense to me, but look crazy to you. The more I studied and wrote about the financial crisis, the more I realized that you could understand it better through the lenses of psychology and history, not finance. To grasp why people bury themselves in debt, you don't need to study interest rates. You need to study the history of greed, insecurity, and optimism. To get why investors sell out at the bottom of a bear market, you don't need to study the math of expected future returns. You need to think about the agony of looking at your family and wondering if your investments are imperiling their future. I love Voltaire's observation that history never repeats itself. Man always does. It applies so well to how we behave with money. In 2018, I wrote a report outlining 20 of the most important flaws, biases, and causes of bad behavior I've seen affect people when dealing with money. It was called The Psychology of Money, and over 1 million people have read it. This book is a deeper dive into the topic. Some short passages from the report appear unaltered in this book. What you're holding is 20 chapters, each describing what I consider to be the most important and often counterintuitive features of the psychology of money. The chapters revolve around a common theme, but exist on their own and can be read independently. It's not a long book. You're welcome. Most readers don't finish the books they begin because most single topics don't require 300 pages of explanation. I'd rather make 20 short points you finish than one long one you give up on. On we go. 1. No one is crazy. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. Let me tell you about a problem. It might make you feel better about what you do with your money and less judgmental about what other people do with theirs. People do some crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. Here's the thing. People from different generations, raised by different parents, who earned different incomes and held different values in different parts of the world, born into different economies, experiencing different job markets with different incentives and different degrees of luck, learn very different lessons. Everyone has their own unique experience with how the world works, and what you've experienced is more compelling than what you learned secondhand. So all of us, you, me, everyone, go through life anchored to a set of views about how money works that vary widely from person to person. What seems crazy to you might make sense to me. The person who grew up in poverty thinks about risk and reward in ways the child of a wealthy banker cannot fathom if he tried. The person who grew up when inflation was high experienced something the person who grew up with stable prices never had to. The stockbroker who lost everything during the Great Depression experienced something the tech worker basking in the glory of the late 1990s can't imagine. The Australian who hasn't seen a recession in 30 years has experienced something no American ever has. And on and on. The list of experiences is endless. You know stuff about money that I don't, and vice versa. You go through life with different beliefs, goals, and forecasts than I do. That is not because one of us is smarter than the other or has better information. It's because we've had different lives shaped by different and equally persuasive experiences. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. So equally smart people can disagree about how and why recessions happen, how you should invest your money and what you should prioritize, how much risk you should take, and so on. In his book on 1930s America, Frederick Lewis Allen wrote that the Great Depression marked millions of Americans inwardly for the rest of their lives. But there was a range of experiences. 25 years later, as he was running for president, John F. Kennedy was asked by a reporter what he remembered from the Depression. He remarked, "I have no first-hand knowledge of Depression. My family had one of the great fortunes of the world and it was worth more than ever then. We had bigger houses, more servants, we traveled more. About the only thing that I saw directly was when my father hired some extra gardeners just to give them a job so they could eat. I really did not learn about the Depression until I read about it in Harvard. This was a major point in the 1960 election. How people thought, could someone with no understanding of the biggest economic story of the last generation be put in charge of the economy? It was, in many ways, overcome only by JFK's experience in World War II. That was the other most widespread emotional experience of the previous generation, and something his primary opponent, Hubert Humphrey, didn't have. The challenge for us is that no amount of studying or open-mindedness can genuinely recreate the power of fear and uncertainty. I can read about what it was like to lose everything during the Great Depression, but I don't have the emotional scars of those who actually experienced it. And the person who lived through it can fathom why someone like me could come across as complacent about things like owning stocks. We see the world through a different lens. Spreadsheets can model the historic frequency of big stock market declines, but they can't model the feeling of coming home, looking at your kids and wondering if you've made a mistake that will impact their lives. Studying history can make you feel like you understand something, but until you've lived through it and personally felt its consequences, you may not understand it enough to change your behavior. We all think we know how the world works, but we've all only experienced a tiny sliver of it. As investor Michael Bartnick says, some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. We are all victims in different ways to that truth. In 2006, economists Ulrich Malmedy and Stefan Nagel from the National Bureau of Economic Research dug through 50 years of survey of consumer finances, a detailed look at what Americans do with their money. In theory, people should make investment decisions based on their goals and the characteristics of the investment options available to them at the time. But that is not what people do. The economists found that people's lifetime investment decisions are heavily anchored to the experiences those investors had in their own generation, especially experiences early in their adult life. If you grew up when inflation was high, you invested less of your money in bonds later in life compared to those who grew up when inflation was low. If you happened to grow up when the stock market was strong, you invested more of your money in stocks later in life compared to those who grew up when stocks were weak. The Economist wrote, "Our findings suggest that individual investors' willingness to bear risk depends on personal history, not intelligence or education or sophistication, just damn luck of when and where you were born." The Financial Times interviewed Bill Gross, the famed bond manager, in 2019. Gross admits that he will probably not be where he is today if he had been born a decade earlier or later. The piece said Gross' career coincided almost perfectly with a generational collapse in interest rates that gave bond prices a tailwind. That kind of thing doesn't just affect the opportunities you come across, it affects what you think about those opportunities when they are presented to you. To Gross, bonds were wealth-generating machines. To his father's generation, who grew up with and endured high inflation, they might be seen as wealth incinerators. The difference in how people have experienced money are not small, even among those who might think are pretty similar. Tech stocks. If you were born in 1970, the S&P 500 increased almost tenfold, adjusted for inflation, during your teens and 20s. That is an amazing return. If you were born in 1950, the market went literally nowhere in your teens and 20s, adjusted for inflation. Two groups of people, separated by chance of their birth year, go through life with a completely different view on how the stock market works.